The Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Olayemi Cardoso says Nigeria's foreign currency saw some $600 million inflow in the past few days, reflecting foreign investors' confidence in the economy. Cardoso told the IMF head of Africa Department, Abebe Selassie, that the central bank has no intention to defend the naira or intervene to prop up the currency, but to allow a free FX market.
It's not our intention to defend the naira. It is not. And much as I have read in the recent few days some opinions with respect to what is happening with our reserves and the central bank defending the naira, if you think back to what our overall policy and philosophy has been here, you can see it's counterintuitive. Okay, basically, what we're encouraging is for the markets to willing buyer, willing seller, price discovery. And ultimately, I perceive a future where central bank will really not need to intervene, okay, except in very, very unusual circumstances. What is important to us is that there's sufficient liquidity in the market. I can understand that, especially at the outset, there have been little cases where the Bureau de Change, the BDC, there was a need to get that segment going. And, you know, small amounts of money, relatively tiny amounts of money have gone into that to catalyze that happening. Because it's important that, again, individuals have access to funds to send abroad their kids abroad and do things which are important, health, etc., etc. So it's important not to keep them out of the mainstay. If you watch in the next couple of days, I think between yesterday and today, we had about 600 million US that came into the reserves account. So I wouldn't let people get too excited about this thing. All I will say is that we are looking towards ensuring that we have a market that operates on its own, willing buyer, willing seller, and price discovery. That's where we're going to. The shifts you've seen in our reserves has really, little or nothing to do with defending any naira, and that's certainly not our objective.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has announced a revision to the loan-to-deposit ratio for banks, reducing it from 65% to 50% to align with the current monetary tightening measures. This move aims to regulate the circulation of money in the economy, especially during periods of liquidity strain. Now, Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu joins me to discuss this further. Good morning, Mr. Chika. Good Thursday to you.
Morning, yeah.
How are you today?
Good morning. Good
morning.
Well,
I think a good place to start is
CBN.
Yes.
CBN governor in Washington.
Let's start with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a discussion I had with some people this week, and I said that the CBN needs to communicate more, about the direction of their FX supply and what their plan is. Because, we knew that a lot of the devaluation, the rise in the naira-dollar exchange rate to the almost hugging 2,000 naira to the dollar was not driven by fundamentals based on need. A lot of them were anticipatory purchases by individuals or a flight to safety, because most people didn't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And as I talked about the fact that the CBN needs to communicate more, talk about the direction of the reserve, what they're expecting, diaspora remittances, what's happening, oil export, what's happening, non-oil export also, what are they doing, foreign portfolio investors, what are the incentives and stuff, so that they know that they assure the public that things are happening, and that supply is certain, so that people don't go and start buying to stock up. So I'm impressed with the fact that he has come to do some of this communication to the international press. Again, of course, backholing to us in Nigeria here. Of course, some of the reports, analysis I've done, which I have not verified, have said that from January to date, about $18 billion have gone through the Nigerian foreign exchange, autonomous foreign exchange market. And out of that, less than $600 of it has been done by Central Bank of Nigeria, which shows that, and the CBN can only do that from their reserves, which shows that actually there's some veracity in what he's talking about, that they're not being liquidating the reserves to defend the naira. And they're moving the market towards that, willing buyer, willing seller, free market, which is what we have promised the world. And of course, again, he validated it that about $60 million has gone out to fund the BDC, Bureau de Change, for the retail, especially demand. So it's interesting, if we knew what happened in Nigeria in the last 4 or 5 weeks. You could see the panic everywhere. People were projecting 10,000 naira to the dollar. Some people were talking about 5,000 naira to the dollar. And thank God that those scenarios didn't manifest. So this is interesting to hear from him. He's not defending the dollar and burning our reserves. The fact is that the reserves between March and April, reduced by more than $2 billion. And people were bound to ask questions. And the questions he's answered and said, they'll have to have some mandatory payments in debt repayment, which they have made. And they were not, the dollars didn't slide into the Nigerian FX market to defend the currency.
Yeah, it's certainly very refreshing to hear. You just like to hear a lot more communication flowing out of that. Let's also look at, bank liquidity ratio, which is, 50% from 65%.
Very interesting, because I used to, being a mathematically based person, I used to say that the kind of policies that Central Bank of Nigeria pushes out sometimes are mathematically impossible to comply with, because you hang cash reserve ratio at 45, 45%. Basically, we know that banking is taking money from those who have surplus, deposits, savings, current accounts, to give to those who have deficits, those who want loans, and so on and so forth. So the loan to deposit ratio is a ratio that the central bank regulator uses in the banking industry to usually two elements. Most important element for Nigeria, for example, was a lot of banks were not very averse to giving out loans. So the central bank said, okay, we're going to punish you. So you must give all the deposits you collect. If you collect 100 naira deposits, 65% of it, 65 naira, you must give it as loans, to make sure that the Nigerian banks fund the real sector. Because a lot of them were giving about 30% because of the issues in the bad loans in the weak macroeconomic environment. So, well, on one hand, you are saying cash reserve ratio is 45%. Now, for our viewers, cash reserve ratio basically means that for every 100 naira deposit they bring, 45 naira of it is sterilized in CBN as cash, not remunerated, not paid for. So the banks have only 55 naira to play around with. Then again, from that, they're going to insist that they're going to give do loan to deposit ratio of 65%. So I'm just saying that where it was hanging before 65%, it was not it wasn't possible to comply with that. Again, it was inconsistent with the contraction environment for a regime that the CBN is pushing. So it's not surprising, therefore, that they moved it down from the 65% to 50%. Basically, what they're saying now is that for every 100 naira deposit you get in, you must give out 50 naira as loans. And if you don't do that, you'll be penalized for it. With a proviso, in trying to comply these banks, make sure they don't go and book bad loans and say that it was we that caused it to do it.
That's a very important warning, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't go and look for any kind of loan and give her because you want to comply with the 50% ratio.
Yeah.
You must still be very careful in giving out your loans. Yeah. So I guess now, bring it down to, we expected this to happen, the reduction. So bring it down from 65% to 50% is consistent again with the increase in the cash reserve ratio to 45%. So they balance out each other. And we hope that CBN implemented that also will have to be very, very careful, because I thought about the fact that almost about 17 trillion of bank funds are already sterilized in CBN based on the new policy that CBN put out as cash reserve ratio at 45%. And a lot of banks are actually struggling now in liquidity. Not bad, but the issue is that they're struggling on day-to-day liquidity.
Right. Surely, as you say, this certainly should have been anticipated, particularly in light of the CBN moving towards a more contractionary approach. So just best to align with the current monetary tightening.